Hey guys, and welcome back to another great episode of the Capoeira Connection Podcast, episode number 4. Today we have the privilege of sitting down with Mestre Pinga Fogo of Ginga Brazil, CDO, here in Austin, Texas. We hope you enjoy. Nice kind of way to get into it.
Yeah, sure. I prefer
But so the first thing is, I haven't really said like welcome to Austin, but it's really good to have a Capoeira Mestre, another Capoeira Mestre here in Austin. We've had, if I remember correctly, over the last 25 years, I think 4 Mestres to live and teach in Austin. And that was Mestre Rodrigo, which was my Mestre. Mestre Fran, he came through. Yourself, Mestre Pinga Fogo. And who else? I know I'm missing one. There had to have been another one. Dos, tres. Maybe that was it. Can you think of anyone else?
No, I thought about Mestre Fran.
Yeah.
I think it was only 3 of us.
And I think Mestre Fran was here for maybe a year. Maybe
Okay.
a year, 2 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And you must have come after him, right?
That was after him.
Okay.
Yes, that was after him.
So how's the city of Austin treating you?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah?
I love Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
it's
did
a
you
great place.
How did you decide to move here? Or when was kind of your first encounter with Austin?
Yeah. At first, my wife and I, we were thinking about, moving somewhere warmer, because we lived in Connecticut for 10 years.
Okay.
And every time during the winter time, we were like miserable,
Yeah.
like it's too cold for us. And we would be stuck at home for like 3 days with snowstorm. So, and then, due to my traveling and, I got to, see a lot of places in U.S. warmer than Connecticut. And I suggested her California. But for some reason, she's like, well, we should try somewhere else. And California is too expensive.
Man, but that is the dream place for, I think, everybody to live. But
Yeah.
it is expensive.
Yeah, and also I love surfing.
Yeah.
So California would be a dream. And I never thought about Texas.
Okay.
I've been to Dallas, Houston, San Antonio many times. And for some reason, I was never in Austin.
Yeah.
And then one day she just said, well, how about Austin, Texas? I was like, I don't know. I never been, but, like the place I went in Texas, I didn't feel the vibe, I don't think it's a place that I want to leave.
You're talking about like Dallas and those. Okay.
Yeah, the other places. So she's like, well, but I heard great things about Austin and we should check it out. So then my wife and I, we used to do acro yoga.
Okay.
And acro yoga. So by coincidence, like one day she's like, well, I saw that they're going to have this course, acro yoga course in Austin. So why, we don't go and take the course and, we can check it out the city. I said, yeah, fine. We came, I contact Metido.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have met him before that somewhere. I think maybe in San Antonio or Dallas. I cannot remember. Maybe like a Capoeira Gingas event.
Okay.
But we lost contact, but then when I knew that I would come to Austin for this course, I contacted him and we ended up setting up a workshop. So, he was very welcoming. He took me for a tour in Austin. He was a really nice, with my wife and I. And the week that we spent here, that was unbelievable. Like we fell in love for the city. So, but then I was like, I don't know. I'm still not 100% sure. So let's sleep on it. Let's think about it. So maybe I believe like 3-4 months later, Metido invited me to come to his event. So by that time, we had decided, well, I think Austin is a good place.
Yeah.
So I came and then, I taught a workshop at his event, and he ended up taking me to one of the apartments that I have, seen on online. And yeah, maybe like after his event, maybe like 3-4 months later, I moved. Yeah, so
That's funny. That's everybody's first impression of Austin. It's like it's such a wonderful city, especially in the summertime. There's so much like outdoor things to do, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
And your wife, did you meet here in the States or in Brazil?
No, we met in New York.
Okay.
She used to train capoeira with a friend of mine in Connecticut. And then I went to one of his events and we met, and yeah, we started dating.
Okay.
Yeah, but we met here
Very
in
cool.
US.
And she's adapting to Austin life.
She loves.
Yeah.
We love Austin. We like we've been here for in July will be 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And we really enjoy Austin.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you're gonna stay here for forever. Because like I said, I want to live near to the beach.
Yeah.
Where I can surf and have a place for me to teach capoeira. But for now, we are super happy. Yeah, we're enjoying Austin.
How many different places in the U.S. Have you lived? Was it just Connecticut and then Austin?
Well, my first experience in U.S. was back in 1997.
Okay.
I was invited to a capoeira event. It was a summer camp, capoeira summer camp in California. It was Northern California. And the invitation was from Mestre Quebrinha.
Okay.
So I was professor by the time. I came to spend like 2 weeks. I came with my master. And back in 1997, there were not that many capoeira schools in U.S. So I received a lot of invitation to stay. And one of them was Chicago. I ended up going to Chicago. I spent.
That's a cold place too.
It is. It is a really cold place, and that was in August.
Okay.
So no, actually, that was September. I remember by the time I got in Chicago was like November, so it was right, like when the winter was starting. And like the 3 months I spent there was like snow everywhere and super cold. So I did not adapt. I ended up going back to Brazil, and I finished my degree. I have a bachelor in physical education.
Okay.
So I finished my degree back in Brazil.
Let me ask you something about
Sure.
that. Now, I remember. I don't know if it was the government or something, but I thought I remember something about them making it a law or rule that in order to teach capoeira at some point you needed that background in education or physical education. Is that correct?
Yeah, that happened in Brazil back in maybe I cannot remember, but that was a long time ago.
Okay.
They tried.
I was gonna say, is it enforced?
It didn't work.
Okay.
Yeah, they enforced, to all the capoeiristas that were teaching capoeira to have, like a physical education degree. But then, like they tried to close some schools and, but it didn't work.
Okay.
Like after a couple months, it didn't work. So yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to touch on that real quick. So
Yeah. So that was my first experience in US.
Okay.
And then like I said, when I was in this summer camp in California, like I said, I received two more invitations. One of them was from Mestre Efraim Silva, that lives in Connecticut. He is the pioneer in Connecticut.
Okay.
And he has a company, a show company, so he does performances in schools all over Connecticut, New Jersey, New York. So he invited me to, when I was in 1997, when I was to this capoeira summer camp. But he said, you can come and work with me, but you're gonna have to find a place to stay. You're gonna have to do everything on your own. But I can pay you to work for me on my company. And since I came just for 2 weeks, I was scared, I was like, first, I don't speak English. Second, I didn't bring enough money to stay, My plan was to be here for 2 weeks. And the invitation that I had to go to Chicago was, they offered me everything, housing, job, teaching classes, everything. So I chose to go to Chicago. But then, I kept that on the back of my mind, my head, the Mestre Quebriña's invitation. So back in 2003, January to 2003, I was in Bahia, in Ilhéus, Bahia, for Mestre Suassuna's Capoeira event, Capoeirando. And I saw Mestre Quebriña there. And he was with a large group of students that he brought from the US. And he said, well, the invitation is still, up. So if you still want to come and work with, on my company, I'll be glad to have you there. So that was back in January 2003. In September 2003, I moved to Connecticut.
Okay, from Chicago.
From Brazil.
Oh, from Brazil.
From Brazil, because from 1997, when I came the first time, and I went to Chicago for like 3 months only. I moved back to Brazil.
Okay.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
So, and then I spent all these years, like maybe 5-6 years in Brazil.
Thinking.
I still want to go back.
What made you not pull the trigger to go to Chicago? If they were offering you like that kind of stuff, were you just kind of hesitant or didn't know?
I didn't
wasn't ready.
Adapt to the cold weather.
Okay.
First, the culture shock was strong, was like big for me. It was a big deal. The food, the language, and I was like maybe like pretty much all day long on my own, like by myself, right, on a basement, and I felt like that I was not ready to move to another country for good.
Do you mind if I ask you how old you were back when you were trying to make these decisions to move to another country?
I was 27.
27, okay.
27 years old. Yeah. That was when I moved to Connecticut. Okay. The first time I came, I was like 22 years old.
Okay.
First time I came.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was young. And I think it was good the time from Chicago when I moved back to Brazil. I spent 5 years traveling all over. I mean, I was traveling before, but after I lived here for 3 months, I spent a lot of time in Brazil, like studying and traveling, going to different groups. And I was the only one from my group traveling, I was by myself everywhere. I got beat up so many times, to different rodas.
But I'm sorry, your group is Cordão de Ouro?
It's Capoeira Ginga Brasil.
Ginga Brasil, okay.
But it's linked with the Cordão de Ouro.
Okay.
So then, I really, really got some experience, traveling through the country. So back in 2003, I was more prepared.
Okay.
I think I prepared myself to move. Not that was not difficult for me in the beginning. I had hard times. By that time, 2003, the internet was not like it is right now.
Right.
So, I remember that I used to write letters to my family like every week, send them postcards. So, but I was more prepared than the first time I came.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, I ended up, staying with Mestre Quebrinha for 10 years.
Wow.
Yes, 10 years doing performances, mostly in the tri-state area, but we did performance all over the country.
And he, for those of you listening that don't know, is an incredible musician.
He is.
Right.
He's a showman.
Yeah.
He's a showman. He's a great percussionist. I learned a lot with him how to act, like on a stage, how to talk to an audience, a large audience. I never had this experience in Brazil. I mean, I did a lot of performances in Brazil, but was under my master supervision. I was just one artist on stage.
Right.
But I learned from him how to lead a show. So I, after 2-3 years working with him, I was able to handle 500 kids show, and talk to all of them, and be able to control the crowd.
Yeah.
And that was an amazing. So we are best friends until today. We talk to each other almost every day.
And the shows that you guys were doing at the time, were those purely capoeira shows, or were they music? Were they culture, Brazilian culture? What kind of shows were you guys?
It's a Brazilian culture show. So the show, it's 45 minutes long, and it's divided by 3 parts. The first part, it's maculelê. The second part is capoeira, and we finish the show with samba.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's only 3 people.
Wow.
Performing. Yes. So we take turns with the instruments and, performing, doing the movements. We bring some kids to the stage to try the maculelê. The structure of the show, it's really, really good. Really good. Yeah.
Wow.
So I still, use this format for some shows that I still do here in Austin.
Right. Wow,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Is back when you guys, and maybe still now, did yourself or Mestre Frame have any contact with Mestre Gelon in Dance Brazil and what they were doing, or what he was doing? I mean, as far as ideas, or even how to put together an audience or a show for, kind of like a tour or something like that. Because I know that's something that Mestre Gelon has done for a long time. It's a bit different. I think his is more of just a dance company. But I don't know, any connection there?
Yeah, I'm really good friends with Messi Gelon, and I've watched a couple of Dance Brazil show, but I don't think so. Maybe Messi Efraim has, had some more contact with Messi Gelon,
Sure.
talking about the way that he does the shows, but it's a little bit different from the show that we do. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the show that we do, it's more we interact with the audience.
I understand.
And the show that Mestre Gelon does, it's only the show. It's
Yes.
only the performance.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but Mestre Gelon is next level.
Yeah. That's funny. So you were with Mestre Frame for 10 years doing this, and then what came next after this kind of stage in your life?
Yeah, at the beginning, he asked me many times to teach at his academy.
Okay.
I kept training at his academy. I got the opportunity to through Mestre Efraim, I got the opportunity to teach at great places like YALE University, UConn, Central Connecticut State University. So he has a lot of contacts in Connecticut and the whole state.
And were you teaching workshops at these places, or actually
Regular classes?
Regular classes.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yes. And then 2 years living in Connecticut, I opened my capoeira school.
Okay.
And there was a martial arts studio. And the owner of the studio used to train with Mestre Efraim. But then, he moved a little far from Mestre Efraim, so he opened a capoeira, a martial arts studio, and he asked the Mestre Efraim to send some of his instructors there to teach capoeira. But by the time, he didn't have anyone to send. So when I told him that I was, interested in opening my school, he put me in contact with this person. And he ended up being my first student.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I remember for 8 months, I was teaching only this guy.
Yeah.
Antonio, his capoeira name is Arame. So he helped me a lot. We had a deal, but about rental, but he's like, Messi, why we don't have students, you don't need to pay me anything. So, like for 8 months, it was just two of us training, sometimes it would be like 2 feet of snow outside and he would be there, he never missed the class. He was very loyal. And after that, like little by little, one student, showed up, and like little by little, we grew our group. And back 2005, I had my first event. In Connecticut.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many students, more or less, were you attending that time in your group there in Connecticut?
Well, it's hard to say because capoeira schools, they vary a lot, the number of students.
Right.
But I would say maybe 50 students.
Okay.
I would have 50 students. A lot of kids. Maybe half of my students were kids.
Okay.
Even more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's
that was
great.
A pretty consistent group.
And then how, I guess, making your transition here to Austin, or did you make your transition from there to Austin? And what happened with this group, and did you kind of pass it on, or you set somebody up to take over, or give us a little bit of kind of the history?
By the time I decided to move to Austin, to be honest, everything happened too fast.
Yeah.
Within 3-4 months, I got myself here, with my wife. So I didn't have time to prepare, students to take over of the group.
Right.
So, and then by the time I had about 6 or 7 high courts.
Okay.
That they were already helping me with the classes, subbing my class every time I would travel. And it's funny because I had a meeting with them, and I asked them who would be interested in takeover of the group, because I was moving. At first, everyone was shocked, and nobody would.
There's some big shoes to fill.
I know. Nobody would say I'm gonna take over. And the only person that I never thought about him, because he's a great person. He's a really good teacher. But he has 2 kids, and he's busy. He does performance in schools as well, like a circus performance. And I never thought about him. It's just a guy that I never thought about him. Guess what? He was the one that stood up and Messi, I'll take over of the group. I was surprised, but 3, 4, 5, almost 5 years.
Wow.
From when I moved to now, he already hosted 4 capoeira batizadas.
Wow.
So of course he doesn't have the amount of students I used to, but he has a very consistent group. He teaches in schools. He has a studio at his house. He built a circus and a capoeira school right on his house.
Oh, wow.
And he also teaches on at this martial arts studio in West Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool, because that would, it would be such a shame to spend so long, building a group and creating, and then, I mean, of course, life takes you in places sometimes you don't even have time to prepare for, but to just leave that behind or let somebody else come in, not part of the group, and kind of swallow it up or something. So that's very fortunate.
It is. I was glad because when I moved from Brazil to Connecticut, I left about 100-something students back.
Wow.
And same thing happened. I didn't have anyone to stand up I'm going to take over. So I ended up asking all my students to train with my master. And I would say 80% of my students, they moved with my master.
Wow.
Yeah.
And who is your master?
Mestre Quebrinha.
Quebrinha.
So, so I had this transition 3 times, when I moved, twice. When I moved from Brazil to Connecticut, I had to start all over again.
Yeah.
And then when I moved from Connecticut to Austin, it started all over again.
Yeah.
To me, I don't mind, like I know sometimes, after teaching for over 20 years, it's hard for you to go and there's only one student,
Yeah.
and you have to teach them how to do ginga. Like it's hard, but I love what I do. So to me, it's hard, but I love it. I love it. I don't care if there's one student or 50 or 250.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to teach, and I leave my house super happy that I'm going to be teaching capoeira.
Yeah. So one thing that I'd like to ask too that I'm sure is on like many different people's minds, and everyone measures it differently, right? Is the idea of success. Some people measure success by the size of one group, or someone who's able to create mini groups, or I don't know, someone who's able to graduate someone from the ground up to a contramastery or a mastery or something like that. And I ask this because I know that coming here and starting a group, and again, like you just said, starting with one person, that's very hard. And sometimes it may be, it's easy for someone to feel like, man, or question, like, what has my success been? And maybe you could touch on, like, what's the idea of success in terms of, a capoeira mastery on many different levels? Because it can't just be the size of your group. That doesn't measure success, right?
No, to me, success, to me, it's way more than this, because I've seen I see a lot of groups that they're big, but they have big problems as well. Like when you have to deal with a lot of people, you're dealing with the human beings that, they have their problems, they have, like the different ways to think. So success to me as a capoeira master, it's when I change someone's life for good, someone that trains, after training capoeira, they change their behavior with their parents, they're feeling well with their body, they're eating better because capoeira, their lifestyle changed, because they're training capoeira. When I see that I was responsible for changing someone's life, to me, that's a success.
Right.
Of course, like every master, they want to have, like a student that, one day is going to become a professor, a contramestre, a mestre. It's really nice when you have someone, like from day one.
Yes.
And, like one day you look back like, wow, this guy's, it's been with me for like over 20 years. It's really nice. But to me, that doesn't mean that, to me, at least, my opinion, that I'm very successful because I have 30 masters under my supervision.
Right. And, I guess, how do you, if you're, let's suppose, I guess there's many ways to make a living with capoeira, right? Like doing the shows, teaching the classes, things like that. And how do you kind of, like, over the years have prioritized either, because I know you're a mastery who has many invitations and travels a lot, and sometimes, that can take away a little bit from the group that you're trying to cultivate. And so how do you balance that to figure out, well, I guess, to some degree, if I'm teaching classes, like what's more important, me to go travel and make appearances at events and help kind of support the capoeira community in general, or focus more on the group that I have here, because that's something too that I've asked myself as well. I went through like several year period of time where, as Mestre Rodrigo was making his transition back to Brazil from the United States, I took over the school, and for 3, 4, 5 years, it was like every day doing that. And my traveling went down to like almost none, because I was just there so much, and then it's like, man, but there's still things that I feel like in order for my capoeira and knowledge to grow, you have to get out and learn other things. So how do you find like a counterbalance, or like maybe even, what's more important and at what stage? Like, is there a time when you're like, okay, this year, I need to start cutting down my travel because I need to focus on this in the group and cultivate this, Yeah,
it's a fine line. It's, to me, capoeiristas, they need to be, participating of, different rodas, different events. And not just to show who they are in a capoeira world, but to get more experience, playing with different people, teaching different people, learning from different people, So it's hard to balance, like how much you should stay home and build a strong group. When I say strong group, it's like a consistent group that, an amount of students that you can make a living of it, and travel at the same time. So it's hard to balance that. But to me, I try to keep my classes on the weekdays, so then I can free my weekends so I can travel, But since my boy was born last year, I've decided to this year on to slow down my traveling, because for example. I don't know about last year, but the year before last year, I spent 4 weekends at home. So, and here in US, it's just my wife and I. Now I have my son, but
Right.
It's just my wife and I, so I don't like to be away that much anymore, so I can still balance and, still travel and teach and get some more experience and learn from my traveling, but I want to stay home as well. I want to spend more time at home.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if I answer your question,
Yeah.
but it's hard to balance.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is, so like as people kind of move up in the graduation of capoeira and want to start having their own classes and become a professor, instructor, something like that. How feasible is it at first to just say, okay, I want to do capoeira 100% of the time, and that's all I'm going to do without maybe a secondary job or something like that? And I ask because, I kind of briefly mentioned it with my mastery, talking to me. I started capoeira with him when I was 12 years old. And as I grew up, one thing that he always taught me was the importance of other means of education and work. And he's like, look, I know you love capoeira. I love capoeira too. But in the end of the day, like, you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and your family. And so have a backup plan. And the way that Mestre Rodrigo always did capoeira was he did it for the love of the capoeira. And I'm 90% certain that for, 10, 15, 20 years that he was teaching here, he didn't ever really make any money doing it. In fact, I think he paid most of the time to have the studio open, which shows like a whole nother level of like love for the sport in the community, because he had his own, aerospace engineering degree and his own companies and stuff like this. But for 20 years, it was like, whether or not we were making the rent, he was doing whatever he could to just keep trying to keep the doors open because of the difference he saw making in other people. Right. So, when someone first starts out trying to have classes and, maybe you have some experience with this as well. Like, do you balance things out with a secondary job, or you have like another plan? Or I know, you were talking to me about you and your wife have an endeavor together with the yoga apparel.
Yeah, it's fitness clothing.
Fitness clothing?
Yeah.
So maybe you could touch on that a little bit in some of your experience. And share something for people who are, maybe they have like this illusion that, oh, I'm going to do this and that's all I'm going to do. How feasible is that?
Yeah, living off capoeira, it's not easy, because, it's normal for all the academies to, one day you have 100 students and then 6 months later you have 30 students, so that instability, it's normal because, capoeira sometimes... someone come up with a movie that has someone doing capoeira, and then all the capoeira schools are packed, and then maybe a year later like we lose some students. So it's hard for you to make a living off capoeira just teaching capoeira in your school. So that's the reason that I also travel, not only for the money, but it's for the to get more experience. Right. And and learn more out there. So I believe that it's hard, but like a lot of people, they don't trust in capoeira. I believe if you trust in capoeira when it's good and when it's not good, like when I say good, it's when you have a lot of students. Sure. And when you don't have a lot of students, you're gonna make a living. It's not gonna be like something that you can count on it, like how can I say, like a steady income. Yeah, steady income. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, they give up of capoeira, like, I've been trying for 2 years and, I have only few students, so I have to have another job. I have to have, I think it's good for you to have a backup, a backup plan, like I said, I do some other jobs here and there. I help my wife with her business clothing, so that helps with our income. But I really, really trust in capoeira. Like my first year here in Austin, I had just one student. I trained for the full year and paying out of my pockets the rental to have one student. And I never complained about it. I never complained because I trust in capoeira. And if I have to pay rent out of my pocket for the rest of my life, I'm still gonna do that. People may say like, "Oh, you're stupid," like, because you could have any other job and give your family a better life, but I wouldn't be happy.
Right.
Like.
But it seems like you also created like a structure in your life that enables you to be able to do that, right? Because if you have just one student and you are paying out of pocket, I mean, eventually, if you don't have another source of income, you don't have the ability to do that, right?
Exactly.
So I guess that's where kind of like, I agree, the faith is a huge thing, right? Because if you yourself don't believe in it, it's probably not going to happen, right? And it's not going to manifest itself. So that's, just I want to hear your take on it as well, because I know, for example, like we have some students that are getting higher up and they're like, man, I really want to do this. And, how can I help support them, but not give them the wrong advice that sends them down a road that is telling them to believe in something that I myself don't believe in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I also want to be able to give them the proper guidance.
Yes. I think studying, it's super important. I always tell my students, your priority, it's your school. So study, go to school, go to college, get some certification. I think this is your priority, and then if you decide to leave, make a living of capoeira, it's a different story. But first, like you have to really be 100% that you want to make a living of capoeira.
Right.
And that requires you to train at least 15 years for you to start to feel capoeira, start to feel how it is to teach capoeira. That one day you're going to have a student that it's not going to be in a good mood. One day 2 of your students are going to fight in your class, and you have to know how to deal with that. So it's not every day. One day you're going to wake up like with a headache, and you still have to be happy and show them, like the best. So it's not like flowers, only
course.
flowers, teaching capoeira. It's any other career, like sometimes I don't want to hear the sound of the berimbau.
Yeah.
Like people playing berimbau next to me, hey, listen, I let me listen to my MPB here, like I don't want to listen to the berimbau. So, but, like if you could advise your students in this direction, like to have first their degree or whatever they want to, the path they want to, follow, and then when they are certain that, like they are for sure they want to be a capoeira professor, instructor, whatever, it's a different story. So then you can direct this person, in a way that they're going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you see also different masteries in Brazil, and I guess I'm not talking about the masteries who have humongous schools, but masteries who maybe have smaller schools, fewer students, that really struggle with like day-to-day, I guess just making it financially, but they're still 100% there for like the capoeira. Do you think that there's like a different mindset of teaching capoeira and living capoeira in Brazil with those kind of masteries and students versus kind of like the American culture and lifestyle?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. In US, it's way easier for you to get more students and make a living off capoeira than in Brazil. You know, in Brazil there are a lot of people teaching capoeira, you know, and a lot of people that they give up of capoeira, great masters that they've been training capoeira for over 30 years, and you know, out of a sudden they just decide to stop capoeira because, you know, they cannot even pay their bills. You know, so here I that's my opinion. I believe even though it's harder for you to promote because there are a lot of people, they have no clue what capoeira is.
Right.
So you have to demonstrate, you have to do rodas in the parks, you know, but I think it's easier for you to have a better style or, you know, have a better life.
Right.
Than in Brazil. In Brazil, you can have a double of students that you have in the US. You still be struggle to pay your bills.
Yeah.
You know, because you know they have more masters, so it's the competition. It's you know.
Yeah, for
more.
sure.
Yeah,
and also, you know, over the last 25 years, I've seen and watched the community and like level of capoeira teachers and masteries here in the US has increased phenomenally. You can go almost anywhere in the US and meet world-renowned masteries. It's incredible. Like the accessibility that I don't want to say just Americans, but I guess in our context of what we're speaking, like that Americans have here in this country to find. I mean, you can go, you know, one state over, a city over, you know. I mean, here in Austin, we're lucky to have, you know, Mestre Pinga Fogo. We have Contra Mestre Esquilo, who's, you know, also been everywhere. Everybody knows him. You know, it's really great. We have Contra Mestre Matiu, who's been here for 20 years as well, and so we're really lucky. You know.
Yes, we are. My first year here in US, no, actually, the first time I came to the US was back in 1997, in just one event. I was able to meet like a huge amount of masters that I never had the same opportunity in Brazil. Nowadays, you know, like back in Brazil, they have big events where they bring like big names in capoeira, you know, but back then was hard for you to travel and, you know, have this accessibility that we have here in the US.
Right.
You know, so here, like you said, you know, like you're here in Austin and, you know, like Contra Mestre Esquilo has his event and Mestre Gelon is here. You know, like so easy, you know, to have Mestre Gelon here, which is a big name in capoeira. And then you hop in a plane, I'm going to go to New York. And then you can go see Mestre João Grande.
Yeah.
And then you go, I'm going to go to California. And then you have Mestre Acordeon. You know, so big names in capoeira. And not just people, these masters that are living here in the US. But most of the events that you go in the US, there are a lot of big names in capoeira. So, and unfortunately, for that reason, a lot of people take for granted.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people, I remember when I was living in Connecticut, it's only my hometown in Connecticut was like 35 minutes from New York. And my students, they would go like to New York to see Mestre João Grande maybe once a year.
Yeah.
You know, I tried many times, you know, like a lot to go to Mestre João Grande. I made to his academy many times, you know, like every time I could, I was there. But, you know, like a lot of people take for granted, you know, like a lot of people that live in the Bay Area where Mestre Acordeon is, you know, they see Mestre Acordeon. I see Mestre Acordeon more often than they see Mestre Acordeon.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, so there's the good and the bad side on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, I remember too when I remember when Contra Mestre Gringo, and I talked about this with him on the last podcast, when he was kind of forming or deciding to teach in Houston, and Contra Mestre Mechido and I were 15, 16. I think I just got in a car and we're like, there's capoeira there, let's go. Because there wasn't any capoeira around. The only other contact we had was Mestre Jalon's nephew, Lalo, and he was teaching in San Antonio. And we would go down there and they would come here, but it was like, maybe every couple of months. And then slowly, like you see it like build, start to build up. And so that was really, really fortunate. I was really excited to discover like that the community was growing larger and larger,
Yeah, I think a lot of people, a lot of capoeiristas, they see the growth of capoeira as more competition. I don't see this. I see this like a bigger community, like even my students, I remember the second place I was teaching here in the second location I had here in Austin was far south, was like Slaughter and Menchaca. And some of my students they were living here up north, they would say like, oh no, it's too far, it's 35 minutes. So I don't know how much commitment they want to have with capoeira.
Right.
Because, I'll give you an example as of my master. He used to train with Mestre Suassuna in Sao Paulo. So he would go like, he used to have like a full-time job. So he would leave at 6 o'clock from his job, hop on a bus for 2 hours, go to Sao Paulo, hop in a metro, on a train for another 30 minutes, train for two and a half hours, and go and same commute back home. And he never complained about it. He would do like twice a week, 3 times a week, and then you tell people here to drive 30 minutes in a really nice roads, like, I don't know, it's a different mindset.
Priorities, right?
Yeah, priorities. Yes.
Yeah, I 100% agree about more capoeira is better for you and, my business. I think 100%. Because when there's not, you don't have as much access to people seeing what's going on. Even running, running a CrossFit gym for several years. We were one of the first to open up in Fort Lauderdale. Well, I'll tell you what, as soon as a few more opened up, business was up, Because also then, like, people have choices and then I think it becomes less of a competition the more that there is there, and it depends too on the interaction, right?
That's what a lot of capoeira teachers, they don't understand. Like there's a Burger King across the street from McDonald's, and people that like more, they like Burger King more than McDonald's. They're gonna choose Burger King. Some of them they're gonna choose by the price. And capoeira is the same.
Yeah.
We shouldn't fight for students, because these my students, like you should not go there. I think they're free to choose where they want to train.
Right.
If they don't choose by price, go for the price.
Yeah.
If you don't choose by the quality or by the style, everyone is free to train, whenever they want to go.
Right. That brings me back to I feel like I was very lucky in the way that I found capoeira, and the person, my maestri who taught me capoeira, I think gave me some really good insights when I was younger, and gave me a very good foundation to feel comfortable going out and learning from other people as well. One thing Mestre Rodrigo would always tell us, he's like, I can't teach you everything. You have to find other people or other masteries. Like, go and find them. Don't have me send you somewhere. Go, hey, knock on Mestre Pinga Fogo's door. Hey, can I train with you? Something like that. And one thing that I feel like a lot of people got very disconnected from was this idea of loyalty also. I have my mastery. Forever will just be my mastery. And I will never go and say, oh, will you be my mastery if he dies or whatever happens, right? But without that with that mentality gave him the peace of mind to not have to feel like he's got to keep me on a leash. No, this is my student. You can't go here because I'm worried of, you know. And so he's like, no, go learn with Mestre Jalon, learn with Esquilo, learn with Mestre Pinga Fogo, something like this.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
It is important. The more you hold your students, the more they want to try different things.
Right.
You know, it's like raise a kid. You know, like you say, oh, you cannot go there. You know, the first thing they want to do is they want to go there. Why I cannot go there?
Right.
You know, so I leave my students free to choose whatever they want to do. You know, like I create a community, I create a family in my capoeira school, but at the same time, I tell them all the time, please go train somewhere else, go take class somewhere else. You know, sometimes if they feel like they're like struggle or they feel like I think I reached the plateau. You know, like I don't think my capoeira it's you know, like it's getting any better.
Right.
Okay, go take a class here and there, you know, like see what else you can change, you know. So I don't know. To me that, you know, like I never, since I started teaching capoeira, I never kept my students only you know, under my wings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very important. And then going back with your master is Mestre Quebrinha? Quebrinha. And did you start capoeira with him?
Yes, I did.
You did?
Yeah, so he's also my uncle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I started capoeira without knowing, you know, like I was just 4 years old, and my parents got divorced by that time, and my uncle, Mestre Quebrinha, he pretty much like adopted me, you know, like I would be at his academy like every day, you know. So, yeah, when I realized I was training capoeira for like 10, 15 years already, you know, yeah.
And I had the pleasure of attending your event, the Festa Capoeira, and this was the second time you've done.
That was the second one.
The second one here in Austin.
In Austin, yeah.
Give me a little bit of insight of like what brought the idea, because it was a little bit different, or seemed a little bit different than just like a batizado. We're just gonna have a batizado. We're gonna have guests. It was kind of more of like an event. I feel like it would have been a very successful event had you not even had a batizado, but just organized these people to come. You know, so give me a little insight about what prompted you to kind of create this event here.
Yeah, the idea came from you know, all my traveling. You know, like I would say 80% of the events I go, it's all the same. You know, like they have workshop, roda, batizada. Workshop. You know, so I just thought about. I'm not the one that came up with this idea. I've seen some things different here and there, and I thought about, you know, like I think the students, they like to take classes, to take workshops, but they also want to try different things. They want to play more. They want to have more rodas.
Right.
They want to take like a dance class. They want to do like a maculele. They want to talk. A lot of students, they want to talk, you know, they want to hear from the masters.
Yeah.
They don't have the opportunity to talk to the masters. So that's how I started to change the structure of my event. You know, like I still want to have a batizado. We just have a batizado linked to the Festa de Capoeira. You know, I still have some students getting their belts. So the batizado ceremony will be like a special part of the Festa de Capoeira.
Right.
But the whole event, it's like different things. For this year of 2018, I even think I'm even thinking about adding more things, different rhythms of I don't know, atabaques, or, you know, bring another guest that would teach a different dance from the Brazilian culture, or, you know, like have more time to talk, you know, so things like that I think it's Well, I'm trying out, and
Yeah.
it seems like people like,
Yeah.
you know. So if they like it, it means that it's a good idea. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going and accepting more feedback, more ideas from you guys. Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the hammer with students like to talk, and they like to talk directly to the masteries. And I was kind of talking with you earlier, is I haven't been speaking Portuguese for more than maybe the last 10 years, right? And I went to Brazil my first time when I was 17 years old, and I went with my mastery, and I went with Contramestre Mechido. He was 17, 18 at the time too, and one other student. And I loved it so much. We went to Campinas in Sao Paulo, and we trained with his mastery, Mestre Wilton, and Mestre Bilisquinho, and many other people. And in fact, that was the first time that I met also, Mestre Rodrigo took us to Mestre Suassuna's Academy in Campinas. In Sao Paulo. And it's like on the second floor, and it was a narrow place, one window in the wall cut out,
Yes.
It was an amazing experience. So much that when I came back, I think I spent maybe another year and a half here in Austin, and I was like, there's so much more I want to know. And there's so much more that I want to learn about my mastery's lineage. And at the time, I was going to Austin Community College, and I didn't have a lot of money, but I made it up in my mind. I was like, man, I want to go back to Brazil. And I kept asking my mastery, if I decide to go, can you set up a place for me to stay and this and that? Oh, yeah. But he would never give me like a definitive answer. And my mom didn't like the idea. And so one day I showed up to the academy, and I put my plane ticket on the table, and I said, Mastery, I leave in 2 weeks. I'm going to Sao Paulo. Help me with some place to stay. And he's like, how long are you going to be gone? I said, 4 months. And he's like, oh, man. So I bought a tape recorder, and I ended up staying some time with some of his family, some time with a few of Mestre Bilisquinho students, some with Mestre Wilton students. And I went with like a notebook, and I had my friend just help me write these questions and talk with Mestre Wilton and like really try to learn things, and that was meant the world to me. And I had all this stuff, and I came back, and I had a journal. I had all these things that I would trying to share with my group, because I thought it was very important to pass our group's lineage on to, the students, whether Mestre Rodrigo was going to organize it or do it not. I wanted to do it. And my car got broken into, and all of my notebooks taken, and all, and it's like, sometimes I sit and I just try to recollect like the things I asked him and the questions, and I just like can't come back up with it. And I'm like, man, but it's like the communication aspect is huge. It's huge. And I wish back then, even to have a better understanding when I was much younger, that I spoke the language. And it took me so long to learn, and I guess I learned Portuguese much the way that you learned English, perhaps. I just arrived there in Brazil, started working in an all Portuguese speaking environment, and just learn,
Yeah, when I moved to the US, I was 27 years old, so I was not young anymore. Which makes harder for you to learn a new language.
Mm-hmm.
Not impossible, but when I arrived here, I went to school for maybe like 6 months. But since I was working with Mestre Quebrinha and another Brazilian guy, both of them they were here for like maybe 20 years, but back in
Yes.
that time. So they didn't feel the necessity of speaking in English, so they're around Portuguese people. I mean, Brazilians, they're talking Portuguese all the time. So I didn't learn, for the first couple of years, I didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
Just a little bit in school, but I was not practicing.
Right.
So after, I start to, talk and teach at my academy and hang out with my students, I start to learn much more.
Yeah. And then going back to your event and your batizado, one thing that I thought was interesting that Mestre Rodrigo used to do as well, is kind of like the exam, or you have some sort of exam for the capoeira. He never did a written one, but he definitely would like take us 2 by 2 and ask us certain things and do certain movements and make sure we knew the names of this and could play, different things. Can you tell us a little bit about what's your mode of operations for and expectations for like the batizado? Like what can one of your students expect?
Yeah, the idea of test my students came from my master. So I learned from him. So it's divided by 3 parts. The first one, it's theory. So I give them a booklet. They study about, there's the questions and answers. So they study about, and then we have an oral test. The second part, it's the instruments. So, it gets harder as they become more advanced in capoeira. So they have to play all the instruments. They have to play different rhythms on the berimbau. They have to sing as well. So instruments is the second part, and the practical is the third part, which we divide the practical by like a solo. They have to show me some basic movements, and then the second part, it's 2 people. They doing like kicks, so one person doing the kicks, the other one doing defense, and vice versa, to see how they can attack and defend. And then there are 2 types of games. One, it's I call demonstrativo, which is the like more floreios and more like the flow of the game, and the other part is the technical game, like where they're gonna use the techniques. There's no more floreios in that test. It's more like takedowns and how well they can apply a martelo without hurt the other person, like using the technique. So the evaluation that I'm looking for, it's just like for them to see how well or how bad they're doing in capoeira. It's not to fail them. Oh, you failed, you're not gonna get your belt.
Right.
Or like, oh, you were approved, you're gonna get your belt. It's not. That's not the point of the test. The test is just to force them to really train hard to see like, oh, I earned this belt. Like I deserve this belt. They can, not that I use like the. I don't ask these students to compare themselves with with other students, but sometimes they look like, well, we start together, me and you, we start together, and then we are going for the same belt, but you were way better than me. I know that people are different, but sometimes it's because I'm not sending to that many class, because I'm not trained as hard as you are training, so that's the reason that I still apply the test to my students. Yeah.
That's really neat. I often, I always kind of ask myself, I wonder how other masteries, how they pass on certain expectations for their students too, because I feel like sometimes you can have an expectation, but if it's not voiced correctly and the other person doesn't really know, and they're not coming through with what you're expecting, it's like, well, why don't you know this? Well, I don't know. Why don't I know this?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the reason. That's the reason I do the test. I apply the test, because I know who deserves each person. I know I'm with them every single day. So I know who deserves the belt, who it's training more than the other person. So, but sometimes they don't know. Sometimes they are not training instruments enough.
Right.
So if they have to take the test, they have to, to be with the requirements. Like they have to be good and pass the test.
Right.
Yeah.
So, up to, or how important is it? Because I feel like one amazing thing in capoeira is it's like all the ambassadors of the art, a majority of them seem to keep a very traditional thought of like how the art should be passed on and what it should entail as far as like traditions. I mean, I'll give you one example, right? Is that I think either you or Esquilo kind of touched on in the community hall. It was like learning Portuguese. It's a non-negotiable thing, right? Perhaps I can't say should or shouldn't, but for a mastery to not make that connection with the culture and art, or become a mastery and not have that connection or ability. I mean, what are kind of your thoughts on that, as far as like traditional, and like what in your opinion are some of the expectations of a professor, contramestre, a mastery, for someone who, I don't want to just say Americans, but definitely someone who's not Brazilian, who doesn't have an innate connection to the culture and certain intangible things?
Yeah, I think your question, there are two different things in your question. One is tradition in capoeira. You know, when you talk about not walking in front of the instruments, or don't change the instruments if the game is still on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are playing, you don't switch instruments. You know, few things that I think it's part of tradition. And the other thing, it's about how important it is for the person to speak Portuguese, to go to Brazil. You know, so I think there are two different things, which both I think it's important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I believe that in capoeira exists the basics of the tradition that it's important for you to know. You know, like I said, you know, like don't walk in front of the instruments. You know, like my master used to say, like, don't start singing before you look to the oldest capoeira. You know, so there are another older capoeira next to you playing the berimbau as well, playing the pandeiro, atabaque, any other instruments. You should wait to see if that person is going to sing, and then we start singing, or ask for the permission to sing. So anyways, there are some few basics things that I believe it's important.
Yes.
And some other things are irrelevant, you know, like because capoeira, as any other martial art, there's evolution. You know, with the evolution, you know, there are some really cool movements that were added to capoeira.
Yes.
A lot of masters, they're against that. This is not capoeira, this is a break dance. You know, I'm not that strict about things like this, you know, because I believe the evolution is good as well. You know, everyone needs to you know, to
express.
Express and recycle, you know, like
Right.
your knowledge, you know. So I don't know if you understood, but you know, like talking about tradition, I teach my students whatever I think it's important. The way that they not gonna be embarrassed in front of other masters, you know, like the basics of the traditions, know how to get in another capoeira school, you know, be respectful and ask for permission and introduce yourself before you get in a roda. You know, simple things that I believe it's important. You know, like I said, some other things that I you know, like some new songs, some messages. No, you need to sing only the traditional songs. You know, I believe it's important. It's important to have new songs in capoeira, but first you have to know the traditional songs. Does that make sense? Like,
of course.
You know, like it's important for you to be open for the new things, but first you have to, you know
There's
the
gotta
foundation.
be a base, right? A foundation.
Yeah, and talking about the other parts, I personally, you know, tell my students to, if they wanna really feel what capoeira is, they need to go to Brazil. They need to eat their food, because capoeira, it's not just da pernadas, you know, just throw kicks. You know, capoeira, it's much more than this. You know, some of the capoeira songs talk about a place, talk about you know, a dance that we have in Brazil, talk about different things that even if you read a lot of books, if you talk to masters here in the US, but you know, you're not gonna understand, you know, fully. You know, like if you go to Brazil, Master Efraim says that you have to eat their food, you know, sing their songs and speak their language, and you know, live there like and learn every single day. Watching people going to the bakery, watching the free markets, and like things like that. I believe it's important. It's important. You can say like, oh, but this is not capoeira. But it is part of the Brazilian culture, not just learn the language, but learn about the culture. It's the same thing to me, like I'm against the people that Brazilians or any other people from any other country that come here and they don't accept the American culture. You have to accept that you're living this country. You have to respect that. You have to accept that. You have to learn that. So I try as much as I can to adjust. Of course, there are a lot of things that I feel uncomfortable sometimes, because it's not my culture, but I respect. I try to learn, like I've been here for almost 15 years in the US. I don't speak perfect English yet. I want to improve my English, so there are some things that I know that it's going to open more doors for me. I'm going to be able to talk to a parent of my students, and I'm going to be able to talk to a mayor of a city, so we so I believe it what we are talking about, like once someone reach the level of instructor and up, it's important for them to, if they want to continue their life teaching capoeira, it's important for them to go to Brazil and learn the not just the language but the culture.
Yeah. Has it been significantly different teaching capoeira to foreigners versus Brazilians? Even like the acceptance, or not even harder or easier, but just different? Do they take to it differently? Is it harder to explain some things because of like the cultural gaps?
It is.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it is. Especially because the language barrier, I think to me nowadays it's easier than it was before, because I can explain better. Sometimes I have something in my head that I want you to do, but I don't know how to explain. So nowadays it's been easier for me that it was like 10 years ago. But beside that, I think it is different as well. I think Americans, you guys work too much. So that being said, it's hard for you to have a commitment and train as much as Brazilians do. I'm not saying that Brazilians are lazy or they don't work. They work as hard as we do, but like I believe they have more commitments. They if they have to train 4 times a week and go to a roda on the weekends, they make the time. And they have their family, their kids. I just believe that if it's something that they really like, they go for it. Like here, I'm not talking bad. I'm just saying that maybe Americans, they have more options, so they don't want to commit with just one thing.
Well, even going back to what you were saying before, when you were way down on slaughter and people are like, oh, 35 minutes. Man, 35 minutes is that, It's
exactly.
Like, I sometimes still can't believe that, know? I mean, when I was younger, I was in middle school, so I guess I was 12, 13, something like that. I wanted to do capoeira so bad that I got out of school at 2:30. Class didn't start until 6:30. And I would get dropped off at the recreation center. I would sit there for 4 hours, twice a week, 3 times a week. And I would just sit there. And then class comes for a 1-hour class. I sit there for 4 hours. And then I would have to get a ride home with someone else because my mom had another job, And it was like, wow, there's a lot of sacrifice there and almost no option, So that's interesting, and I appreciate your insight in that. Going back also to like some of the traditional things, there's a few things that I was fortunate enough to be present. I've only been present in a few of your rodas, but I always try to notice like the little differences here and there. And one thing I'd like to talk a little bit about is just like the talkies of the beating bowl that you play. traditionally, and then also like the setup of the bateria, because I noticed that you put the gunga in the middle, and I guess I've always been accustomed to, agogo, pandero, atabaque, gunga, média, viola, pandero, something like this. So can you share a little bit of that?
Yeah, I think this bateria setup. It came from Mestre Suassuna. He passed along to my master, and I continued the same thing. I believe since the gunga is the one. At least my master used to say that. He still says that. The gunga you should give to the oldest capoeirista in the roda. All right, if this person or he or she prefers to play the viola, that's fine. But at first you say
the opportunity.
Yeah. So since it's the major instrument in the roda, it should be in the center. And then we have the viola, the médio next to it, one in each side, and we have the atabaque, the pandeiros. So I don't, that was just the way that I learned. I don't know the reason that,
Sure.
Why the viola, it's on the right side and the médio is the left side.
Right.
So I'm just, passing the what I learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when we did our first community roda a few weeks ago, you guys, I say you guys, but yourself and Contramestre Skill too, always have great things to say and like knowledge for people to pick up on. And one of the things that I connected, which was the exact same thought of my mastery as well, is the idea of, at least in your mind, not separating, capoeira regional, capoeira Angola, capoeira this, Muginho, but it's like when the beating ball plays, you play that game, and that's capoeira, right? Which I think that's fantastic. And I was really happy to see some of the Angoleiros come out to the roda as well, because sometimes I feel like, I don't know, maybe because of the barriers that we set up, it's sometimes intimidating to come where we don't feel totally comfortable because it's something outside of our element. Primarily when you hold a roda, what toki do you play?
Yeah, usually when I have official roda, because sometimes we just play, after class,
Yes.
we have a, informal roda. So, we just go with the flow. But the official roda, we start with ladainha, and we play, gunga plays Angola, médio plays São Bento Pequeno, and viola plays São Bento Grande de Angola. That's how we start. So with the roda de Angola, okay? And then we switch to São Bento Grande de Angola in all the three berimbaus. All the three berimbaus playing São Bento Grande de Angola.
Ding, dong, dong.
That's exactly, yeah. São Bento Grande de Angola. And then sometimes it's not like we don't do this all the time, but sometimes we take off all the instruments. We keep just one berimbau, two pandeiros, and we do capoeira regional. So that's usually how we do. So we either finish with the capoeira regional with one berimbau and two pandeiros, or we still play São Bento Grande de Angola, but faster, on a faster pace. And then the game goes faster.
Okay.
Yeah. That's usually how we set up the rodas.
And is that traditional of Cordão de Ouro in general?
I would say yes.
Yeah?
I would say yes. Yeah. So after Muginho, Mestre Suassuna, sometimes he just he switched to Muginho in the middle of the roda, and of course there's no singing on the Muginho. And then they play the Muginho and they go back to São Bento Grande de Angola, or that varies a little bit, But most of the places, yes, they play only like São Bento Grande de Angola. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about like the expectations of the talkies in the difference of the game? For example, when you play Regional de Bimbo, or you play São Bento Grande de Angola or Benguela, what should people know? I don't want to say like to put up like lines like you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, right? But maybe talk a little bit about the difference of that. because we can clearly see a distinction between Angola and regional, right? But then within the capoeira, there's many different toques that ask you to do different things, so I guess first my primary question is what's expected or the difference between the games of São Bento Grande de Angola and Regional de Bimba.
Yeah, the rhythms they dictate, they tell you what to do, so the rhythms that they play. The way I learned, when they're playing São Bento Grande de Angola, all the berimbau's are playing São Bento Grande de Angola, it's the capoeira contemporânea that we play. Nowadays, that includes all the floreios, the backflips, everything. So, and what varies on that rhythm, it's the pace. If it's slow, you're going to play the same game slower. Or if you speed it up, you're going to, speed it up your game as well. All right? That's the way I learned. And then when you switch to a capoeira regional, you should play more like standing, not that capoeira regional, it's only standing, but it's more like standing, using more techniques, this is when it talks, I'm not talking about capoeira regional in general, because the rhythm, it's called São Bento Grande. A lot of people, they say, São Bento Grande de Bimba, São Bento Grande da regional, but the rhythm is called São Bento Grande. So my master, when he plays São Bento Grande, we switch to regional style, which, we learned from some of Mestre Bimba's students, that such as like Mestre Acordeon, Mestre Tapuã, that we should play more standing, using more techniques, some of the takedowns. We don't play Banguela. Which is different Banguela and Benguela, which was created by Mestre Camisa. The rhythm of Benguela, it's totally different from Banguela of Mestre Bimba.
Let's talk about that. Also, I don't mean to cut you off. Let me finish your idea,
Sure.
But that's another question that I was kind of leading into.
Yeah. So Banguela of Mestre Bimba, it's totally different from Benguela, which was created from Mestre Camisa. Mestre Camisa created this rhythm.
Mestre Camisa of Capoeira
Abadá, from Grupo Abadá. Yeah. He has an explanation. I cannot remember exactly why and he created this rhythm, but and he even says that it's nothing related with Banguela of Mestre Bimba. It's more related to Benguela, country in Africa, So I believe he flew to Africa and he heard the rhythm that's similar to the rhythm that he plays, which is called Benguela. And he creates this type of game, which is not Banguela of Mestre Bimba game.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, that's pretty much the difference.
And how is the Banguela of Mestre Bimba?
Well, that's the thing, we never played. I heard different things from each master that used to train with Mestre Bimba. That this game it's more floreios. This game is more sketchy, like you try to trick your partner. This game, so I would rather not say
Sure.
What I think. So because it's up in the air,
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
So because I heard different things.
Yeah.
Okay, but
one thing that I heard was that it was a rhythm perhaps to calm down something when, I don't know, something's escalated to the point where it's like borderline fight or something a little spicy, was to switch to bring maybe the energy or the people down a little bit. But I have no idea. That's why,
Yeah,
again,
as much as I read and I heard and I learned, Mestre Bimba, he used to play only São Bento Grande, Banguela, and Iuna. Iuna, floreios, only from professores formados and up, no singing. Banguela, it's more ground movements, and like I said, I cannot tell you for sure what it is.
But the rhythm played on the berimbau, Benguela, is that right?
Banguela.
Well, I'm talking about of Mestre Camisa.
Mestre Camisa, Benguela.
Benguela. That's don ding ding ch don ding ding. In Banguela of Mestre Bimba, how's the rhythm of that?
It's not the same. It's kind of similar.
Okay.
You know, but it's like don jing, don 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 jing, don don jing don don jing. Don jing jing don don jing. He has a lot of variation on the rhythm. You know, like this is another point that I believe it's very important for all capoeiristas. It doesn't matter what are their levels to learn. You know, like I said, learn the foundation first, the basics first. You know, a lot of people I play Mildin rhythm on the berimbau really well, but they don't know, you know, the difference of Santa Maria and Iuna. They don't know, you know, like Cavalaria and Banguela, you know, so things like this that I in my opinion, it's very important. You know, Mestre Quebrinha, my master, he used to say like, no, you have to play all the 7 rhythms of Mestre Bimba. You have to play. You must play all the rhythms of Mestre Bimba. You know, it's hard to play the same variation that Mestre Bimba used to do. I only know few people that knows how to play exactly like you hear on Mestre Bimba CD. One of them it's his son, Mestre Nenel. All the variation, all the you know the little details in each rhythm, he plays exactly like that. So, but at least the rhythm you know how to play. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're not doing the right variation, but you know the rhythm, you know? So, yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot of information. A lot of. Can you talk a little bit about Miudinho and kind of the creation of that with Mestre Suassuna?
Yeah, Mestre Suassuna got the idea from you know, some games of back in the time, the 60s. 50s, the Mestre João Grande and Mestre João Pequeno, they used to play on the streets. So, and a lot of the movements that Mestre Suassuna saw from the game of Mestre João Pequeno and João Grande, he got the idea of those movements and he creates some sequences. So they're about like I believe it's 8 sequences that they do. And the foundation, the basic, it's the movements from the games of Mestre João Grande and Mestre João Pequeno.
Okay.
Yeah, and the idea was Mestre Suassuna, at some point, he thought the capoeira was like the capoeiristas, they were too far apart, playing too far apart, you know? So he put the game in a smaller circle, 2 people playing very close to each other and fast, you know. So and he says ele não conhece capoeirista que tenha junta dura. What that means that he doesn't know any capoeirista that has it's stiff. You know, they have to have their joints like loosen up. So and that's the you know the types of movements that he put on a Miudinho game. So you have to really like, you know, bend your back and you know, like be very flexible and fast to play that game. A lot of people, they think that it's not efficient, but to me it's one of the most efficient games I ever seen. You know, like it's a Miudinho game because to play, you know, with that flow so fast and escape from like really fast kicks with like a lot of expression, you know, like be graceful when you're escaping from a movie. To me, it is efficient. Mm-hmm. It is efficient. You know, one thing you throw like a meia de compasso and I do a cocorinha. The other thing, you do a meia de compasso, I bend my knees, I go under your leg, I bend my back, you know, so it's I'm doing the same defense. Mm-hmm. I'm defending myself, but it's more like you know, like with more expression. Mm-hmm. It's graceful. So to me, it's very efficient.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much the idea of Mestre Watsuna creating this type of game, this style.
I had the opportunity to take one of Mestre Suasuna's workshops in Mohegan in Sao Paulo or Campinas. I don't remember which city, and it was very different from what I had learned. And it was the first time I had heard on the CDs, but I had never seen anybody here, at least in the States, like playing it or practicing it, or So it was really interesting. And one of the during the workshop, what he taught us was a few of the sequencias, and then every time we would go in the roda, at the very end he had a roda of the workshop. You always start with the first sequencia that he was teaching in the workshop to get the flow kind of going, and then from there you open up.
Yeah.
So then every time two people would come, they always start, or during the workship they would always start with that sequencia, kind of get things flowing, and then
and then we improvise and be creative. Yeah.
As far as music and capoeira, are there any masteries who you look up to or that you really, really enjoy the way that they express the musical side of capoeira?
Oh yes, for sure. I really like Mestre Tony Vargas, but to me, when you talk about music, when you talk about rhythms, like I'm stick with the old school. Like I really, really enjoy listening to Mestre Valdemar da Paixão, and Mestre Ira. Mestre Ira, those are my favorite rhythms and singers that I like to listen to. Yeah, so, but like Mestre Tony Vargas it's not just a great person, but a great capoeirista, a great master. But he, through the music, through his songs, he shows you, like a lot of his feelings, a lot of like he sings with his heart. So that to me it's really beautiful. Like I see him every year, so every time I listen to him, like you got a goosebumps through the whole roda, like and he's, like I said, he sings from his heart. So it's different from someone that just singing. Yeah. But my favorite, like I said, Mestre Ira and Mestre Valdemar.
Yeah, very, very cool. And as far as your plans kind of here in Austin, I mean, what do you have any kind of future plans, or how's your work going here with your group, and what do you see for the future? I know you expressed you'd love to live by the beach. I would love to live by the beach again too, coming from South Florida, and I really miss the ocean. But I mean, how do you see the next few years kind of playing out? You have any different plans?
Well, I don't have plans any plans in the near future. I'm living one day at a time. For sure, I wanna grow my group here in a sense that they gonna grow as a community, as a family. Like I'm not talking about numbers. How many students you want to have? I don't know. I just want to have a consistent group that every time they come to my class, they're gonna leave the class happier and feeling better than the way they came in. And they're gonna feel that they learned something from my class. So like I enjoy teaching capoeira, so I just want to continue, like teaching. One of the plans that I have, I don't think I have an excuse for that, but like I wanna start something with like a project, like with kids. Kids that
like less fortunate.
Yeah,
something?
they cannot afford to train capoeira. So I want to be available for them, and also some of the shows that I used to do back in Connecticut, in New York. Go to like hospitals, or go to places that people, most of them they lost their hope, like of living, like they have no motivation, you know, like, so sometimes just go and sing and play a berimbau for them and show some movements, you know, like, I think it's a good thing. So I want to find a time to, you know, not necessarily like every day, but, you know, maybe once a week, go visit, you know, kids and underprivileged, or go to a hospital, or, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
This is something that I really wanna do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you feel? I know this is something that we've all been kind of making an effort towards. I guess especially coming into this new year, but you know, the community of capoeira here in Austin. How do you see that, and what is some of, I guess, your hopes to continue working just in general as us as a community of capoeiristas here in Austin?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for the initiative. I already said that on the last hod we had. You know, I like when people take action, you know, like, not just keep talking. I'm the master of doing this, you know, like, I come up with some really nice project, and then, you know, like, 2 weeks later, I change the project, I do something else. So taking the initiative to put the community together, that was amazing. You know, like I said in the hod, I had the idea with to do that with Wagner back in the time, Metido, Esquilo, but we never did. You know,
Right.
like, we never get done. So that's my intention, to have not just Austin but Texas in general, like a big center of capoeira, like New York and California is. You know, when you talk about what are the best place for capoeira in the US, you're gonna talk about New York and California for sure. You know, so I want Austin to have a really good, strong capoeira as well. And I cannot do this by myself. I cannot grow my group and, okay, so Mestre Pinga Fogo is there, so capoeira in Austin, it's stronger than it was. No, we're going to grow as a community. And the big advantage we have, like I said, we get along to each other. This is a big plus for us, you know. Yeah, I think we just have to keep, you know, seeing each other more often. We have to always be in the same line. And I don't think that, you know, the fact that we are all busy would stop us.
Right.
You know, like, yeah, I think, you know, if you continue in this path, you know, our community is going to be stronger than ever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I really enjoyed having you here. And every podcast I go back, I listen to like 3, 4, 5 times. I keep learning so much stuff. And I also just, you know, want to thank you again for being open to this, you know, coming and expressing. And I'll be honest, you know, the idea of the podcast I had for a long time. But I never really pulled the trigger or started the project. Because I always kind of had a sense of feeling like, who wants to hear me talk about anything? And who am I to pass on anything to somebody else, you know? And when I finally started, you know, I was afraid a little bit of the pushback from the community as a whole, you know, because nobody wants to just be out in the open for criticism sometimes. So that's my fault in having it take so long for me to start. But then I was like, you know, there's so much more learning that I want to do. And so it started off as like, well, I want to talk to other people and other masteries, especially other masteries, and get their opinions of things and put that out. If I'm going to be learning, I might as well share with other people, you know? So I very much appreciate you being a part of that. And I'm excited to, here in Austin, because you're so close, really hope that I can take advantage of learning so much stuff from yourself, you know, as a master who's been all over the place and has had many different paths and opportunities and things that you've done. And I feel the same way with having Contra Mestre Esquilo here, or when Mestre Fran was here. Well, you know, I try to be like as much with those people as I can, and to do and to learn as much as I can. So that's really one of the big goals, and I appreciate you for helping me realize that, and hopefully we can do that for other people too.
Yes, definitely. I believe the idea of having this podcast is amazing. I'm the one that I really like to listen to things like this in my car or like before I go to bed. So I understand that you had the fear to start it because we never think about how good that could be for the people. We think about like the criticism, how people are gonna judge you, how people are gonna who wants to listen to me. I actually have a friend in Brazil that he's master now, capoeira master now, and he said to me once that his whole life he was afraid to sing because he thought that his voice is terrible. But one day he's like, you know what? I'm going to start to sing. I'm going to be a good singer, and he is. Because he trusted, and he just had this breakthrough, and it's like, I know how to sing. I know when it's good, when it's not. I'm going to learn the notes. I'm going to learn how to. So we sometimes we a lot of things that we have in our head stops us to do it. That's another reason that we never had this community roda, because we always like, we are busy now, we cannot get together. So let's take the action. Let's do it. And like I really thank you for starting this podcast. I think it can be bigger. Talking to you, I'm learning as well. Like not just to you, but everyone you talk to, it doesn't matter how much they know. Like you always learn something from each other.
Right.
So I think a lot of people gonna be learning from all these podcasts. Different guests all the time. I don't think it necessarily needs to be a master or a professor or a contramaster.
Right.
We can talk to students that has way more experience in life than we have.
Yep.
We can change the subjects. But anyways, this is your thing. I just want to thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. And guys, for those of you listening, you can check out our podcast on iTunes under Capoeira Connection, also on YouTube under Capoeira Connection. And then you can see our website too, capoeiraconnection.com. So we have just the audio version and the video as well. But again, guys, I present to you Mestre Pinga Fogo. Thank you very much. And I can't wait to see you in the next month.
Awesome. Thank you,
All right.
Contra Mestre Pena.
Thank you very much.